The one-on-one battle between wide receiver and DB during an NFL game is one where a lot of emotions run wild, and oftentimes players have been known to lose their cool and let certain words slip out of their tongues. However, whether you agree or disagree, there are certain lines players should never cross. Talking about another man's family will often more than not draw a reaction from the other player that'll sometimes get you deboed. And in a Week 7 game in the 2013 season, that's exactly what happened when a second-year corner went toe-to-toe against an NFL veteran wide receiver. This wasn't just any veteran, but Steve Smith Sr., who isn't one to shy away from any trash talk. Look guys, there's certain players you may want to trash talk and have a go at, but Steve ain't really one of them. I've made a couple videos in the past about two other corners who made the wrong decision of trying to throw Steve off his game. But yeah, that shit didn't work.
So he can take his back to St. Louis and watch the film, because I don't play them games. And if I see him in the street, I'm gonna bust him in his mouth.
Billy Martin, straight from Brooklyn, better known as Brooklyn. Never taking shorts because Brooklyn's the bomb.
Long before the 2002 NFL Conference realignment, the St. Louis Rams and Carolina Panthers were once division rivals in the NFC West. From 95 to 2001, the two teams met twice this season and even partook in a bitter divisional playoff game. So there was a bit of history from the two teams when they met in 2013. Around that time, the then St. Louis Rams were led by Jeff Fisher and Sam Bradford was the starting QB. And heading into this Week 7 encounter, St. Louis had a 3-3 record and were tied for last in the NFC West. The Panthers, after losing 3 of its first 4 games, got a huge win the week before Minnesota and also went into this matchup with a 3-3 record. This Week 7 encounter was going to be pivotal as the team needed to turn their season around if they had any hopes of making a playoff run. Quarterback Cam Newton was in his 3rd season as a starting QB, but this Panther squad was a team that was led by their stellar defense with the likes of Luke Kuechly and Greg Hardy. In receiving, they had a strong trio of receivers in Brandon LaFell, Ted Ginn Jr., and Steve Smith Sr., while in tight end, Greg Olsen was the main threat. So heading into this game, there was going to be a lot of fireworks right out of the gate. St. Louis received the ball first, and on the Rams' very first snap, Sam Bradford threw a pass into no man's land and right into the hands of corner Captain Munnerlyn, who returned it for a pick 6. And clearly, not the start that the away team was looking for. Later, midway through the quarter, Bradford found success moving the ball downfield and got to Carolina's goal line. However, after 3 unsuccessful attempts while facing 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, Jeff Fisher made the decision to gamble rather than go for the easy 3 points and was stopped by the Panthers D. With Carolina up by 7 and the ball at their 1, it would be the Rams D that came up big on the next play as they got to running back Mike Tolbert for the 2-yard safety. So with the score now 7-2 for the Panthers late in the first quarter, it's right around here when we first see Steve Smith Sr. and Janoris Jenkins go head to head. After the Panthers defense recovered a fumble from Tavon Austin, from 1st and 10, Cam Newton rushed to his right and found his receiver by the sidelines for a gain of 10 yards. Carolina would cap the drive off with a 37-yard field goal to extend their lead by 8. The Rams then answered back with a drive that lasted almost 10 minutes long. From their own 35, Bradford got the offense all the way to the Panthers goal line, and after being stopped, St. Louis settled for the 3 points and were now trailing 10-5. With a couple minutes left in the half and Carolina with the ball, Newton targeted Smith Sr., who was covered by Jenkins, and the receiver made a rare drop as the ball went through his hands. But on the very next snap, Cam hit Ted Ginn Jr. for 22 yards, which set up a 1-yard TD run from Mike Tolbert to give the Panthers a 17-5 lead heading into the half. With Carolina starting with possession in the second half, Cam hit Steve Smith Sr. and the receiver came down with the ball for 19 yards. This pass was thrown into a tight window as Janoris Jenkins even got his hand on the ball. Later in the drive on 2nd and 14, the quarterback connected with his tight end Greg Olsen in the middle for a pickup of 11 yards, and it's at this point where a fight ensued and involved a lot of pushing and shoving. Steve was in the middle of all this as the Panthers coaching staff tried to calm down the receiver.
Meanwhile, we've had fisticuffs break out here at the 40-yard line. A long way from where the line of scrimmage was, and it hasn't ended. And in the middle of it is Steve Smith. Helmets are on the field, and they're still going at it. And 3 flags go up simultaneously. What triggered this, you wonder? Chris Long.
So Chris Long was ejected from the game as referees singled out the defensive end. He and Steve were jarring at one another before the melee and was later found in the middle of the whole scuffle. And it was later announced that the referees thought he threw a punch. However, from the camera angles, it's really hard to tell what exactly happened. Continuing on the drive from the Rams' 13, Cam Newton found Smith Sr. on a slant as he got by Jenkins and pushed the ball all the way to the 1-yard line. This set up Graham Gano's 31-yard field goal, giving the Panthers a 15-point cushion. St. Louis would close the gap on the very next drive as Bradford connected with Brian Quake on a play-action pass down the left for a huge gain of 73 yards. Then Zach Stacy would go on to rush the ball for a 4-yard touchdown, making it a 1-score game. Carolina on their next drive, late in the third quarter, saw Newton get the offense going, and on 1st and 10, Smith Sr. and Jenkins got tangled up as a corner was flagged for a holding call as he was all over the receiver. The next snap saw the two get into a heated exchange as Steve blocked Janoris, leading the pair to get into each other's faces. The corner rushed the receiver and the two began jarring at one another. However, shortly after in the same drive, Smith Sr. burned Jenkins on a short crossing route that he turned upfield for a touchdown. After the catch, Steve pulled a nice spin move, juking Jenkins out of his cleats and made his way to the end zone. And upon scoring, the receiver celebrated by pointing at the DB and celebrated emphatically. During the fourth quarter, both teams exchanged field goals. However, the chippiness continued as with 5 minutes left in the game, safety Mike Mitchell hit Sam Bradford near the sidelines, knocking him out of the game with an injury. After the game, as players were clearing off the field, Fox Sports' Laura Ockman got a quick interview with the receiver, asking about the young DBs in the league who continue to antagonize him.
Last week it was Xavier Rhodes, this week it was Janoris Jenkins. What's your message to these young DBs who want to keep talking with you? Thank you, Steve.
While that response was memorable, what Steve said after the game in the locker room to reporters was one for the ages.
Obviously, his first time ever using the internet and Google, and he Googles information about me, talks about my wife and stuff like that, and that's kind of some of the I just don't play with, and that's all I'm gonna say. I don't play them games. So, when you try to take it personal like that, I don't have really much. I don't have any great humbling things to say. So he can take his back to St. Louis and watch the film, because I don't play them games. And if I see him in the street, I'm gonna bust him in his mouth.
He proceeded to call out Janoris Jenkins about crossing the line when trash talking and put the corner out on notice. While trash talking has been part of the game for a long time and is one of the moments that keeps fans glued to the television, I think there is a fine line when it comes to talking about another man's family. That's more of a sacred place, and to disrespect that, one has to know the player on the receiving end isn't just necessarily going to sit there and let you continue to trash his family like that. All in all, this was a huge victory for the Carolina Panthers as it propelled the team to win 8 straight games and finish the campaign 12-4, winning the NFC South. St. Louis, on the other hand, continued to spiral after this loss in Carolina and lost 6 of its last 10 games, missing the playoffs.